catch-ups on a Thursday, and I hope you're all having a wicked day. Exciting topic today. I'm not gonna tell you just yet because I don't want you guys to get overexcited before we start to rip into it. But really, looking forward to taking you guys through something a little bit different today. No guest on the show today, just me. But in saying that, please reach out if you would like to jump on coffee catch up. I had a good chat to someone this morning who's going to be jumping on next week. So please, if there's if you're interested in joining us, or the same token, if you'd like me to discuss any certain topics or anything that you'd like, I guess talked about through coffee catch up, yell out, send us a message, jump in the chat, comments. Would love to hear from you guys. We want to keep making this as much about you guys and learning and growing for all of us. All right, the suspense must be killing you. I better sit up for this one, guys, because exciting times, because today we are going to be talking about tax. Yeah, I know. It's a little bit exciting, and I'm sorry to bring this much excitement to the Thursday. It's probably the second most exciting thing on my Thursday because I'm having nachos for dinner and looking forward to that. So what we're going to be talking about is, in terms of tax, the interest deductibility. It's a word that if you've read anything in the media, if you have anything to do with property, you would have heard the changes that the government is bringing in terms of the interest deductibility. These changes come into force tomorrow, 1st of October 2021. So I thought, what better timing then for us to start to talk around the interest deductibility. So make sure you jump into the chat, guys, and let us know any questions that you've got as I go through this. And hopefully we can get across some of the concepts and make sure that everybody's up to speed in terms of the interest deductibility. So first of all, I've got the bill in front of me as well, so I can work through that as we're going through today. I find it quite interesting that the first sentence that you've got on this says, the government intends to limit the ability to deduct interest to make residential properties a less attractive investment option and to help level the playing field for first-time buyers. The interesting thing here is that the whole concept of what they've done is probably going to make it harder for first-home buyers. And I'll get to that at the end in my conclusion as to why. But really what the government has brought in terms of this interest deductibility is not being able to claim the mortgage expense attached to your rental properties as an expense against your income. So if you think of it in terms of any business, you got your income, you've got your expenses, and you pay tax on your profits. Now with property, you're going to have your income, you're going to have your expenses, and now you're going to have to pay tax on that profit, but you won't be putting your interest as one of the expenses that you can claim against the tax that you pay. So in turn, you will be paying more tax on your income. Your tax will not actually be related to the profit. And this is something that really doesn't quite make sense to me, because any business really will be run with the concept of paying tax on the profits. Right, so let's get into it and talk a little bit about this. Now, first of all, the government has come out saying that this is a loophole. I don't see how it can be a loophole, first of all, because at the end of the day, it's simple business 101, and every other business can still claim interest as an expense against their tax return. You see it with, you're still able to on commercial, and you can still do it on new builds, and I'll get into it in a second on some of the exemptions. So with this interest deductibility, for any property that has been purchased after or on the 27th of March 2021, you will not be able to claim 100% of the interest. All right, so they've taken that in terms of the 27th of March 2021 was the date. Now, if you had a contract agreed upon, so you had a conditional contract prior to that period, then it counts as being purchased before the 27th. For any other existing properties, this is going to be phased in over a 4-year period. So I've got that in front of me here. So if for the first period, so 1st of April 2021 to 30th of September 2021, be 100%. 1st of October 2021 to 31st of March 2022, 75%, and slowly phased in that regard. Now, this whole phasing in concept or way that it's been done has been illustrated by the Finance Minister, Grant Robertson, as being a way to allow for investors to adjust. That's the way that he's put it out there. As soon as you hear them say it's been put as a way for investors to adjust, that there rings one bell to me. That rings a bell that it gives investors the time to put their rents up. And this comes back to my first point. How can this be making it easier for first-home buyers when first-home buyers are currently in the rental market and looking to move into their first home? What we're doing by this is really going to be seeing a huge increase in rents. I can't see how, through the changes that have come into force, how rents can't be increasing. And it's an unfortunate byproduct, because at the end of the day, the mum and dad investors, or the investors that have properties that are barely breaking even or potentially negatively gearing, are going to be really hurt by this. If you imagine now that they've essentially going to be adding 1 or 2% onto their interest as an expense, if you think of it in that regard, their properties that may be breaking even or so negatively geared are starting to really make a loss, and it's going to affect people in that regard. The investors that have worked with Wealth Mentor, we're very fortunate of buying high income properties, high cash flow properties. So in turn, what we see by doing that is that this doesn't affect them too much. It'll mean a little bit more tax to be paid, but at the end of the day, we're seeing rents rising, and even just with general inflation that we've seen rent rise. Property market has been pretty insane over the last year, and you can understand why the government is looking to do certain things and looking to implement different ways to try and cool down the housing market. But at the end of the day, taxing your way out of a supply issue is not the best way, in my opinion, because we've seen the property market climb 26% in the last year. It's insane growth that we've had, but it all comes back down to supply. And in the first episode that I did of Coffee Catch Up, I gave you guys some stats, and we're talking 40,000 houses short. We're talking about that growing consistently every year between 10 and 20,000. It is a major shortage, and that is the issue that we really come across. Now, in terms of the interest deductibility, there are some exemptions that have come into this as well. And it's really important now that you are looking at your investment properties and you are growing as an investor, that you look at how you diversify your portfolio. Now, that doesn't mean I'm saying go out there and buy a new build. First of all, new builds are exempt from the interest deductibility. Don't go out there and buy a new build because all of a sudden you think that you're going to be getting a better deal. Run the numbers. Is the rent that much better on by not having to pay the interest deduction? Is it that much better of an investment, or is it better off going to an existing property that has, potentially some more land available, has a higher rent compared to your purchase price? In turn, this means having a better yield on the property. So you're probably going to be better off still buying the existing property. Yes, you're going to have to pay more taxes, but also think about what the long-term gain is. If you're buying 200 square meters of land with a new build, just because you then can claim the interest on as an expense, compared to buying a property that maybe has 400, 500, 600 square meters of land, has the ability to add minor dwellings, has the ability for future development. Definitely something to consider. So a couple of the exemptions that we're seeing, and I'm just going to scroll through it as I go through this so I can make sure that I cover off some of the exemptions. For your own occupied property, your main home is exempt. Farms, emergency transitional housing, commercial accommodation, hotels, motels, care facilities, retirement villages, employee accommodation, student accommodation. These are some of the things that are exempt. And then as well as that, we have new builds. So what classifies a property as a new build is any property that has had a new Code of Compliance certificate, so known as a CCC, on or after the 27th of March 2020. So this gives a property the title or the tag of a new build. Now, when the property has the new build tag associated to it, this means that you can still claim interest against the property. There is still interest deductibility. So this is where, as investors, we need to start to be conscious of how we're setting up our portfolios. Think about what was just said there. Any property that acquired a new CCC, So if we have existing properties or we're buying existing properties and we're adding potential dwellings to the property, again, getting a new code of compliance, effectively, from what I can read, adding that title has a new code of compliance and now has the ability for interest deduction. So definitely something to consider. It's definitely in terms of how we're structuring a lot of the work with our current client base is looking at the ability to take either existing portfolios that have land, minor dwellings, or subdivisions and adding dwellings on, or looking to buy property that has the ability to subdivide. Not necessarily even just subdividing, but even just adding a minor dwelling, again, will update the CCC on that title. Bear in mind, if you are subdividing, that's going to add a new CC to the new title, and you may not be able to claim interest on the existing. So definitely something to consider there. Some of the other notes that I've got here, give me a second, let me just pull up. So in terms of the refinance as well, this has nothing to do with in terms of when you're refinancing your property. This is purely in terms of when you purchase the property. So for those of you looking to go through a refinance and looking to purchase new properties, this has no effect on starting the interest deduction. So don't stress too much on that element at all. So in terms of the other changes, so we've had the interest deductibility, obviously this meaning that we can't claim the interest as an expense on our property, but also at the same time we have the changes to the bright line test. So the government has extended the bright line from 5 to 10 years. Bright line is an interesting one, and often people get confused with bright line compared to capital gains tax. Bright line is not a capital gains tax. Bright line is not even a tax. Brightline is a rule that is attached to property as to when you buy and sell it as to whether you will have to pay an income tax associated to the profits. So the Brightline has been 5 years. It has now been extended to 10 years. So any property that is bought and sold within 10 years, excluding the main home, you will be paying income tax on. So that filters back through your income tax returns to essentially work out how much taxes you will pay on the profits. This here, again, has been exempt for new builds. So new builds still have the ability to buy and sell within 5 years. Again, consider the CCC and being able to, again, change, I guess, the tag associated to the property, whether it is existing or does have that new build tag to it. The bright line, again, it's not a tax. It is essentially just a rule that associates how long we have to, in order to sell the property, to not pay the taxes on it. In terms of things that have come out in the media, I find one of the really interesting elements of this interest deductibility is that the IRD has come out and said that they don't agree with it. That there really stood out to me. It's fascinating to see the implementation of this changes in the tax. There's talk about this creating an $800 million of income for the government. It's quite a substantial amount of income that is generated from this tax policy. So at the end of the day, was it a little bit of a double-edged sword? Was it a way of being able to introduce a tax while at the same time be seen to I guess, doing something about the housing market? Again, the housing market really does come down to the supply issue, and we need to be supplying more and more houses. I think that's something that is obviously big on the agenda. New builds exemptions. We've seen better lending options for developments. Definitely consider that if you have existing dwellings and what you can do in terms of adding dwellings to those properties. And there is some exemptions that we do have in terms of the interest deductibility in this bill. So make sure you jump on and have a little bit of a look. I'll drop the link in the chat for you guys later on. Interesting, I can see there a comment, a good morning coming in from Nick. Good morning, Nick. Nice to see you or hear from you. Here's something for you Aussies out there. Nick is obviously an Aussie. He talks a little bit of a twang, and I know we have a lot of the Aussies jump on and watch this. Interesting thing, Aussies can still claim interest as an expense. Yeah, that's right. Aussies have an ability to claim interest as an expense when they are purchasing property in New Zealand. The reason they're able to do this is because Aussie still has the ability to claim interest as an expense. So when you are taking the money back to your Australian tax return, you'll put your income, your interest as an expense in your Australian tax return. Yeah, interesting one there, Nick. Definitely take that on board. And all your Aussies, you are lucky once again for this New Zealand housing market, eh? In terms of the whole concept, I think it's really important that you guys assess your portfolio, assess where you're at in terms of your existing stuff, what your goals are moving forward. If you are being told by your advisors that you need to buy a new build, and then they suddenly put a new build down in front of you, be aware that they are probably getting a nice little commission on that new build. So please be aware that you are making investment decisions based on what is best for your portfolio, based on your goals. It's something that we are massive here on Wealth Mentor. We don't sell your property. We're here to educate and make sure that you guys are buying the best properties forward. So if you have any questions on that, please yell out. Don't worry, we won't be putting 200 square meter land in front of you and saying, jump onto this new build for sure. So ensure, guys, that you have a plan in place. Have a look at your portfolio as a whole. Have a look at where you maybe need to look at the ability to move income. Also, don't be afraid to put debts against other assets or other investments. I've heard of people moving debts from housing over to businesses, or moving it over to, they might have a couple of boats parked up and a few investments in that space. So looking to move those debts across to places where you can still claim the interest is definitely something you want to consider. At the end of the day, if you follow your buying rules, if you're following the buying rules which state buy below value, add value, so we're always creating equity so we can buy leverage into the next deal. We're always following the concept of high yielding property, so there's income. We have the ability to continually earn income on the property. No matter what happens out in the market, if we've got a cash flow positive property, we will be safe. There's all sorts going around. There's the Chinese development company that's giving a bit of fear. There's people jumping on social media saying the markets are going to crash. Well, at the end of the day, if you're buying smart, you're buying cash flow properties. No matter what the market does, you're going to be safe. You know what? I spoke so much. I didn't even have any of my coffee through that whole thing. Guys, if there's any questions, please pop them into the chat while I have a sip of my coffee. So my prediction for the property market out of this situation in terms of the interest deductibility, I checked my crystal ball just before I came into the office this morning. I think that we're going to see rents rise. I feel like that's a given based on the fact that there is extra cost associated to landlords' businesses. I think that we will see, we won't see landlords exiting the market because property is still a great vehicle to be building both long-term wealth and cash flow. At the end of the day, I think we need to be creative. We need to go into our property transactions with a creative mindset, looking at what we can create out of the deal in terms of yield, in terms of tax efficiency. So make sure you keep investing. If you have any questions, make sure you yell out. We've got a summit coming up, guys, in just a few weeks, the Monopoly Summit. We'll drop the link in the chat. There's also a graphic I'll get the team to put up for you so you guys can see the best way, the Monopoly Summit that's coming up in October. Awesome. I like that question there from Nick. The most effective way to build, what is a double-story duplex system welcome in Castlecliff? Yeah, it may be. It's going to come down to the area. I know that there's huge demand through that Wanganui area, so you may want to be thinking about that. I think definitely consider the ability for transportables, houses that are built off site and brought on. We have seen some really great suppliers that are able to do that, and even some really great eco options that have recently come to fruition. So definitely consider getting stuff built off site, bringing it on. It means your timelines are compressed, and in turn you end up with a better return on that. Definitely kit set concepts for base structure. I love it, Nick. Love the outside the box thinking. Nick has done extremely well. I think bought some fantastic properties over the years, and really cool to see that out of the box thinking is what you can do. That property there that Nick bought, I can remember the purchase price, and the current value will absolutely shock you. You might as well just add a zero onto it for what he's managed to do there. Really, really cool. All right, guys. Well, that is coming to the end of today's coffee catch-up. I have talked a lot because I didn't have a guest on today. It was just me talking taxes. What an absolute treat. Bear in mind, guys, I'm not an accountant. I never want to be an accountant, but I make sure that I get myself up to speed on all this in terms of being an educated investor and being able to make sure that I make informed decisions with my portfolios. Please reach out if you would like to be on the show. If you have any questions, my social medias, you'll find me anywhere. Search Jono Frankel. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, because remember, one of my goals in lockdown was to double my Instagram followers. Guys, it's been an absolute treat. Enjoy your Thursday. Again, reach out. Love to hear from you. And most importantly, guys, make sure you stay awesome. See you later.